Thank you very much indeed. Welcome to Inside Government, the year 2022 in focus. My name is O'Brien Kimani. I am joined by a team of highly trained and, of course, thought leaders in specific fields. Unveiling them shortly. They will be helping us to go through the year 2022 and, of course, make projections and predictions for the year 2023. Welcome. We are live on KBC Channel 1. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle, and of course my guests are going to introduce themselves, who they are, and of course the field that they come from. And I'm starting from my left. On my extreme left, I'm joined by a Member of Parliament for Limuru constituency. This is Engineer John Kirago. He's also the Vice Chair of Broadcast and Library Services in the National Assembly, as well as a member of Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Thank you very much indeed, Mheshimiwa, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Very good. And next to Engineer John Kirago, we have Engineer John Tanui. He's the former CEO of Konza Technologies and now Technopolis, and now he is the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy. This is Engineer John Tanui. Thank you very much, Bonapies, for your time.
Thank you, O'Brien.
And next to Bonapies is Dr. Tony Omwanse. He's a Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Innovation Agency. Asante sana, Daktari, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Of course, next to Daktari, we have Dr. Mithika Mwenda. He is the Executive Director of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Thank you very much indeed, Mwenda, for joining us. But I want to start this on a very somber note, and I want to give each and every one of you 1 minute to eulogize Catherine Kasavuli, the veteran broadcaster who passed on early this morning. And I want to start with you, Engineer Dr. Mwenda.
Thank you very much. Let me start by also joining others in conveying my heartfelt condolences and from my organization, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, to the media fraternity, not only KBC, but all over, because Catherine has been an icon. I knew her from my childhood. Yep. She has really been there. She has inspired many. It is really a sober moment, and ours is just to pray for her and pray for her. May Lord keep her soul in eternal peace.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Omwanse.
Thank you very much, O'Brien. Also on my behalf and behalf of the organization that I lead, many friends and colleagues who relate with Catherine Kasavuli, it's a privilege to also share the burden and also to remember the family. As I also grew up, the only person I can really remember is Catherine. And I remember my sisters and my friends as we used to have holiday moments. If it's not Catherine, then probably there's no news. So it's definitely an inspiration to many people, and there's a loss as a result. And so we continue to pray for the family and whatever form of support that we can provide, and let's all pull together for the benefit and of those who are left behind, and also for the family that is grieving.
Very good. Engineer Tanui.
It's really a sad moment, especially for the sector of the ICT and digital economy, and I fully identify with the message by our CS, which he has sent condolence on all our behalf. I join him and the entire sector to condole with the entire family. Catherine really represents the best in respect to professionalism. She grew her career rising and maintaining very high standards, which encourage many to pursue similar career, and I think that's what we'll remember Catherine for.
Asante sana. Engineer Kirago.
Let me also take this opportunity to join the rest of Kenyans in sending our condolences to the family, colleagues, and in fact the whole of this nation for the loss of Catherine Kasavuli. I lived in the 80s and 90s, and I have a history of how she made it in her career. She was a brilliant and hard-working lady who helped to shape many young girls, particularly, for them to break in very many other careers. And as we mourn her, we remember a lot that she has actually done for this nation. And on behalf of the members of parliament, particularly those ones of the Committee on Broadcasting and Libraries, we join the family at this very difficult time to mourn with her. And we pray that God will give the family strength to go through this whole thing. And for KBC, I know you have really lost a colleague and the entire media fraternity. So as a nation, we have lost really a queen in media.
Very good. Thank you very much. And now turning on to my right side, about now to introduce the other guest. And on my extreme right, we have Engineer James Mwangi. He's a mechanical engineer and also a consulting engineer. He's also a board member with Kenya Private Sector Alliance and also the CEO of Current Technologies. Thank you very much, Engineer, for your time.
Thank you very much.
And of course, next to Engineer Mwangi, we have Kelvin Manjao. He's the CEO of Timiza Royal Limited and a Boost Financial Solutions CEO as well. Thank you very much indeed, Kelvin Manjao, for your time. Just like I've done with the other guest, I'm giving each one of you a minute, starting with Engineer Mwangi, to eulogize and to say a word or two about Catherine Kasavuli.
Thank you very much, O'Brien. On behalf of myself, my family, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and the entire private sector, I would like to join other Kenyans in conveying my sincere condolences to the family of Catherine Kasavuli following her demise. For those of us who lived in the times when there was one TV station, and subsequently with the introduction of TV stations, we can never forget Catherine Kasavuli in the way she professionally executed her work, in the way she exceptionally delivered messages and information to us Kenyans. She has left behind a legacy of excellence. She has left behind a legacy of true hard work. And while she's gone, she shall forever live in our souls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, O'Brien. On my own behalf, my family, and also the organization I represent, that is Timiza Royal Limited and the Beulah Clergy Association, I joined the nation in celebrating the life of an icon, and also to give our condolences even to the family. As many have said, the memories with Catherine dates back in the years, and some of us, when we were quite young, we've grown knowing her when it came to news and other programs, and her memories will remain for many years in our hearts and also in the media fraternity. And on the other side also, she's left behind a legacy of consistency, commitment, and diligence, especially in what you do, which is also a great inspiration, especially for us young people, that it is possible to serve the nation, it is possible to live your dreams, and you remain relevant for long. And as a believer, I'm reminded of the words in Proverbs 22 verse 29 that says, the New Living Translation, that says that, do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than working for ordinary people. That is that translation that says that. And I believe if you talk about competency, consistency, then Kasavuli is a true definition of that. As a result, she has served kings, she has served many people high and low, and may her soul rest in peace, and may the Lord comfort the family. And as a nation, and I'm calling on the young people, let's learn from her, let's give our best, let's be consistent.
Very good. Thank you. And also it's good to remind our viewers that Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, as well as the media fraternity, is also mourning the death of Gibson Kituka, better known as prosecutor He acted for more than 20 years in KBC's, one of KBC's premier programs in the name of Vioja Mahakamani. He passed on in Eldoret while undergoing treatment at Mayville. That was on Monday. And so it's a double tragedy for us as a country, of course, for us as the house. And so we pray for strength for both parties. Let's now turn on to the agenda of the day. The year 2022 was full of many challenges, from energy crisis to the war in Ukraine to a debilitating drought in the Horn of Africa that left more than 20 million people in dire need of food. And now, 2 days before we bid farewell to the year 2022, what do we remember most about this year? What were the challenges? What were the opportunities? The peaks and the drops? That's why we are here on Inside Government, the 2022 in Focus. And I have already introduced my team, and now we want to dig deep now into the conversation of the day, even as we continue to mourn the death of the two media giants. And I want to start with the PS for ICT. This is Engineer John Tanui. 2 days before we bid farewell to the year 2022, Bona PS, what is this one thing that you remember the year most for?
2022 was a year that followed a period of COVID, and COVID really affected global supply chains. It's affected our country. There was a lot of impact on the supply chain. And 2022 also we had the Ukraine war. And this really had a lot of global impact that affected our country. Prices of commodities were affected. And that's one thing that really shaped many things in that year. The other, of course, was we lost our former president, President Mwai Kibaki, who played a very key role in the establishment of the Vision 2030 as a country. So it was a moment to reflect the foundations he had done, and personally was well connected to this in that I was running one of the projects which he launched himself, that's the Concert Technopolis project. So we were remembering some of the great foundations he put for this country and targets he set for us within the Vision 2030, and we were happy and wish we could have him to see the completion of that vision. So these are some of the things that shaped the year 2022. Also, it was a political year when, and as you mentioned at your introduction, two important things. It was quite a peaceful election, and it was issue-based. And I think that's where the foundations of our current government was put in respect the focus areas and the sectors, and that even the foundations in the areas of ICT, digital economy, and the creative economy was laid, and which will have impact in the next 5-10 years and the future of our country.
Very good. I'll be coming back to you so that we can discuss more about, Konza Technopolis, and one of the milestones was that, phase 1 is almost complete, or is it completed yet?
We've made quite good progress at Concert Technopolis, and the business of building cities, which is quite new. This is the first city we have built from scratch as a country, from planning and adopting latest sustainability and smart technologies. We've made good progress in terms of horizontal infrastructure, where we are now about 90%. We've started having some operations at Concert Technopolis. The National Data Center is hosted there. We also have made good progress with the establishment of Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, that the building now is off the ground, and we are expecting in this coming year that we can start admitting students. This will be our equivalent of Stanford. So the Silicon Savannah is going to have a new impetus in terms of drive because of the KAIST, which we have at Concert Technopolis. We have our operations there. We have up to 3,000 workers coming and leaving every day. So these are some of the things now we want to see in the next year and the coming days to see it to its fruition. There were areas like PPO, which was part of the Vision 2030 IT and naval services, which are the areas we think now in the coming days, this will be our focus to see they take off.
Very good. And I want to turn on to Mithika Mwenda. This year, I mean, we experienced one of the worst droughts in this region, and all these was attributed to the changing weather patterns. How did we, are you comfortable with the way we as a country managed to handle the drought crisis in this country?
Thank you, O'Brien, and indeed, as you have rightly said, the 2022 was a year of mixed fortunes. We had the worst drought and hunger crisis, famine in 40 years. And it resulted, as you have mentioned, to many deaths. The images of desperation, the images of the livestock corpses all over, not only in Kenya, but even the entire Horn of Africa. But what we have noticed is really inspiring. We have had leadership which was really quite took the center stage in trying to see how we can forestall that and manage that crisis. What has inspired the most of us is the new president who has really taken the leadership in terms of addressing climate change, not only in Kenya, at Kenyan level, but even emerging as one of the top voices on climate change, not only in Africa, but even globally. So to me, and to us who are in this space, we believe that that was one of the key highlights in the year 2020. You know, as of course, we went to the COP27 in Egypt, and you saw again some of the voices, because what we have been talking about, this climate crisis is a global crisis, as the PS are saying, on the shaping global geopolitical interactions, climate change, the Ukraine war, the energy crisis, the hunger crisis, and so these are interlinked, and you see this results into what you are seeing in the country, skyrocketing prices of energy and the food crisis. And so if you do not link this, you are not going to be able to tackle them. And some of them have got that global, impact, and there is nothing as a country we can do about it. We can only mitigate, we can only manage them, we can only try to ensure that we build the resilience of our communities, which are at the front line of this crisis, because we are affected differently. And so that is, we see, based on the outcomes of the COP27 in Egypt, then we approach the new year in a renewed vigor, in a renewed hope that with the leadership which we have, like the introduction, the president leadership in the planting 15 billion trees. By the way, that has only been seen in Africa by only one person who had done this, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who led the country at that level. So we have to give credit where it is deserved, and we hope the work of the leader is just to actually inspire people. All the work, the president is not going to plant those trees. Is you ask yourself at your level, what are you doing? O'Brien, how many trees have you planted this season? Tonui, how many trees have you planted? So it is that inspiration which we wanted. That is the leadership which we wanted. And we hope that we are going to take this together with building resilience of communities. Because if you look at the meteorological department, the weathermen are saying, in fact, we are not going to have sufficient rainfall even now. And so we need to now that is what we call early warning, and we start now preparing ourselves. How are we going to ensure that we do not have see what we saw, those images of desperation in communities in Northeastern, in Masai Land, in Kajiado, in elsewhere, even where I come from, we have never experienced that, the drought, but we are even experiencing it now. So it is something which should shape next planning, next budgeting, next year's priorities, and these are some of the things we are looking into as environmental and the climate community.
Very good. I mean, I'll be coming back to you because, I mean, you have highlighted something that is happening, something quite tremendous, whereby we have seen President William Ruto leading the campaign to plant 15 billion trees. And of course, he has made a commitment that as a government or government event, there will be a tree planting session. I want now to turn to Engineer Kirago. As a member of parliament, I mean, we went through a very highly charged political season, and of course we also saw a highly peaceful transition. I want to hear from you. How do you rate the conduct of our politicians during that political process?
Thank you. One of my very important statements is that as we add the year 2022 for this nation, there is one thing that has been proved right, that there is God in heaven. This is a time we have gone through very many challenges as we were seeking various political posts. Our Kenyan people going through very tough times in terms of economy, the weather, as my colleagues have mentioned. But this nation prayed that we have a peaceful country, a country that will stay together after elections. And we are seated here saying thank you to God for the peaceful elections, for how far we have come, and for the fact that people are able to campaign everywhere in the country. People presented their agendas, the Kenyan people listened, and they made their decisions. And for me, I'm here thanking the Kenyan people for redefining themselves against all the odds and saying that they have a country that they must protect, irrespective of the challenges that we have faced or we have gone through, whether it's a war in Ukraine or COVID, all the things that have been there. They have made clear that they will stay together, they will hold each other, they will fight for the fairness of every person in this country, and they have given us an administration that is God-fearing, that went around listening to the aspirations of everybody in the country. And the people of Kenya gave their opinions as to how we should move ahead. And one issue that I know for sure, Kenyan people are still thinking hard as to how we can overcome. That is one of feeding ourselves. As a country, it is time that we must feed ourselves. We cannot rely on people feeding us. We have the capacity, we have everything that it takes to feed ourselves. To feed ourselves.
Very well. I want to turn now to Engineer Mwangi. You are a board member of KEPSA, an organization that represents the interest of the business communities. What is this one thing that would you say really shaped the business environment in this country?
Thank you very much, O'Brien. Firstly, let me say that this country, even before I answer your question, is very resilient. This country is able to pull together through some pretty difficult times, and that applies for different people and also the business community. That we had so many challenges that included drought, included the Ukraine war, included the fact that the country was coming out of COVID, the global inflation. things to do with service providers and goods providers still waiting for payment through what we call pending bills, which we have been actively engaging government. The country pulled through, and then the year happened to be a very critical year in terms of a democratic process called elections. And I think elections are obviously very, very important in any country, because this is a time where you distill issues further, reprioritize issues further. And in so doing, different political parties come up with their manifestos and sell it to the electorate. We in KEPSA were not left behind in putting together a manifesto that we shared with the different parties. And in so doing, we are glad to note that the current administration was kind enough to take on board some of the recommendations that we had in our manifesto. The cost of living is certainly something at the heart of every Kenyan. It is at the heart of the businesses in our country, because this country, compared to many African countries, has a fairly good business environment. There's always room for improvement. But this business environment has come about because of engagement between private sector, government, different arms of government, including legislature, judiciary, development partners, etc. And that is important for us because we are able to have advocacy on cross-cutting issues, all geared towards improving the economy, all geared towards global competitiveness or enhancing Kenya's global competitiveness. Obviously, in an election year, things tend to slow down, obviously made worse by those circumstances that we have just mentioned of drought, etc. But it's now time to get back to work, and I believe Kenyans are getting back to work. The business environment is getting back to work in terms of building this country, enhancing the business environment, etc. But key things that we still need to look at are things to do with the policies that will enhance business, policies that will be reducing the cost of doing business, etc. And now that we have the new administration in place and their doors are very open, we are glad to see that engagements are going on with a view of improving policies and collaborating in matters that will help improve the living environment. Thank you.
Kelvin, you know, as a young person, as an upcoming business leader, what would you remember the year 2022 for?
Thank you so much for that question. And also I'm grateful for the contribution that the various members in the panel are making. 2023, as I speak as a young person, and also on behalf of many small and young businesses upcoming, 2022, we have some memories that are quite painful and others are also very good. As the year began, remember 2022, as the PS said, it was just coming from the effect of COVID-19. Then we got to an election process or an election year. So as a result, and if I speak on behalf of us who are in the real estate industry and other young people that are also representing the same industry, we realize that during an election period, people tend to hold the resources they have because they don't know what would happen, and they only spend on what is necessary, like maybe food, clothing, and specifically food and the basic needs like education. Remember also, as a result of the effect of COVID-19, this is an year that we had, I think there were 4 terms within the school calendar, which had a lot of impact on the pockets of the parents that affected us in the business. And then our year, or our country, which platform also with Engineer Kirago, the Member of Parliament, Limuru, I think we need policies that support or ensures that in an election year, life does not come to an end. Some of the small businesses closed down, and many of them were at the verge of closure, because when you have opened the office, you go for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months without selling anything. You have salaries, you have employees that are looking on you, you have cost. I think that part, and then we also at the same time with the election period, in addition to campaigns, we also came from a season where there was an issue of changing the constitution and all that, or making the constitution better, as the promoters were feeling. But that really affected the businesses. And then people were not very sure what would happen after the election. Remember the issue of...
there were jitters and fears.
There were jitters and fears. There were even some leaders, especially from the faith community, that had even given prophecies that at the end of the day turned out to be in the opposite, that there will be chaos, there will be post-election violence beyond or even worse than what happened in 07. Those words, especially for peoples of responsibility, they affect businesses and small businesses. Some people went home, they came from the city because they didn't know what really happened. But we thank God, whatever happened even after election, the Supreme Court, the ruling was also able to hold things together. It may not have been the best, but I feel and we feel from the business community that that was a very good ruling, affair. Let me not say very good, because if we went through what we went in 2017, the election going back, many businesses would still be bleeding. And then the new government that took over, I said we have some pains and we also have some good times, is going to also appreciate what the government is doing. And O'Brien, from the business community, we've seen the issue of the hustler, that narrative, not being political, but from the ground, and as they say that vitu kwa ground ni different, for sure that thing connects with the people. The small businesses down there, I'm talking like that because like ourselves, there were things that were stuck, but immediately the government took over. Like last week, we were able to keep the promise to our customers. So many things have opened. The government is opening doors. We were able to even give titles that were stuck to over 1,000 acres in Malindi. So as in, there is a lot that the government is doing, and we are really hopeful that even as we move forward, more policies. But the challenge is this. We have the member of parliament here, the PS, and also I know the president could be watching, or the deputy president. What must we do to ensure that during an election year, life does not come to an end? And election is not a matter of life and death.
Exactly, and thank God we have you know, Engineer Kirago here, who is also a member of parliament and a vice chair of broadcast and library services, and also principal secretary in the Ministry of ICT. I'm sure they will be in a position to respond to that question on what kind of policies do we need to put in place, because I do agree with you. I mean, election is just is an occasion, but you know, the building of a nation, the development of a country, you know, is an ongoing business, an everyday business. And so the question has always been, you know, how do we go into election without affecting our lives, affecting our businesses? So that is a question that I would be expecting Engineer Kirago and of course Engineer Tonui to respond. But before we go there, let's now turn to the issues of innovation. And we saw in April of this year, you know, Kenya launched a 10-year ICT master plan, the first in the region, you know, that details how we are going to develop our ICT sector. We also saw the Kenya Innovation Week, which was highly successful, and we saw President William Ruto saying that innovation is going to be at the heart of his new administration. What else would you have to say, Dr. Tony Omwansa?
Thanks very much, O'Brien, for this opportunity, and also for a specific question and the area that we can also reflect on. Just as my colleagues and panelists have articulated, for me what stood out last year is the resilience of the people. You know, the ability to bounce back, the ability to learn from your past experiences, the ability to think that tomorrow is there for you, so you don't have to give up right now. And that resilience, which probably I also tend to look at as a word like tenacity, how people fight back and how they reflect on their experiences and then make better decisions for tomorrow. So we learned from the past experience, we remain determined, we're able to resolve our issues a lot more effectively for a better society. Coming to the question of innovation and probably also in the context of technology, you see, the head of state made a very conscious choice that the theme for the innovation for Jamhuri this year was going to be technology and innovation. And part of the thinking behind that is that, you know, we are liberating ourselves. We remember our liberation from, you know, colonization, but we also remember that we still have certain challenges that we're dealing with. We may not be colonized by someone else, but we could be colonized by hunger. You can be colonized by joblessness. You can be colonized by a weak economy or lack of resources and so forth. And thinking that technology and innovation are mechanisms that liberate you into the future, then it makes sense to mainstream this and think less about where we've come from, but think more about where we're going as a country. We have a simple definition of innovation in our organization, and we say it is change that adds value. And everyone has a potential and an opportunity to innovate. And so through this same mindset of resilience and asking ourselves as individuals, what can I innovate in my context? It could be a process, it could be a product, it could be a business, it could be my operations. I can save money, I can create new possibilities even in mobility or in food, and let's minimize wastage. So we have opportunities to innovate in many, many ways. And each of us has a role that we can play. In the course of the year, we even hosted the head of the Commonwealth as part of that Innovation Week, and she announced very many initiatives that she would like to partner with the country, which then gives us a lot of hope about tomorrow, that, you know, we have partners that we can work with, we have opportunities with our neighbors, and so on and so forth. Finally, I would say we are beginning to look at the world differently. You see, younger people may have not participated in some of these national forums, and maybe they may not see much value, really. But as time is going forward, the new leadership with the head of state framing a new way of thinking, then we all have an opportunity to participate. So for that reason, I see huge potential and possibility. We have something we call the Global Innovation Index, which is a way of measuring the way we are performing relative to other countries. And there are specific inputs that go into a national innovation system, and there are outputs. What is interesting in Kenya is that the outputs are actually seemingly doing better than even the inputs, which means that the resilience of the people, they are creating very many possibilities, even with very little resources. And now the realization is that if the government is able to put in more input to this whole process, then we can significantly transform our country. There are a couple of things that are now really shaping up. We have the Hustler Fund. Yeah. That is a point to the funding that is an input of the government. The head of state spoke about the startup bill and the startup fund. Those are inputs into this whole process. Policies are shaping. You just mentioned the master plans. We are actually even framing now the innovation master plan for the next 10 years as well. Those kind of inputs and the incentives and the mechanisms that enable people to innovate more effectively, and partners to come in, and international community to even participate, investors to jump in. As the environment becomes better, then the country becomes better in terms of you know, the enabling environment, and then the outcomes only increase. So I think looking back, we have had our challenges, strengths and opportunities, and struggles. But I think the future, in my view, looks promising. Yeah. And we can only soldier on.
And I want to pick up on that issue and pose this question to Mwenda. You are part of the team that attended the Climate of Parties a conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in November. And a lot of conversation that was taking place there was how we can infuse technology to deal with issues of climate change. And Omwanza is talking about how, you know, as a country we are banking on innovation and technology, I mean, to develop our economy. Do you see a correlation whereby we can tap innovation and technology, you know, to deal with issues of climate change in the country?
Yeah, certainly. I think there is a very strong correlation there, O'Brien, because in the climate-constrained world, you know, it is no longer business as usual. We are no longer going to rely, for instance, on rain-fed agriculture, talking about the Kenyan context. And so we require new technology, and the technology which are going to ensure that the country which relies on agriculture for feeding its people, food security, we need to grow crops. How are we going to do that? It is through innovations. It is through decentralized, you know, people-owned, people-powered, affordable energy systems to power those small microgreens at a very local level, so that a farmer will not rely on now would be not be worried about the seasonal rains. He or she is going to grow crops. That is innovation he's talking about. And if you went, there are a lot of exhibitions which were actually at display how young people, how people are really innovating, coming up with very affordable, very small, portable, you know, irrigation schemes, energy systems, solar, you know, wind power systems. So all these talks to what he's talking about, and there is a combination of this. And when we are going now, the conversations which we are having with because you know the problem which we are, and that is what we want to disentangle in what we are doing, is trying to see for Kenyans, for instance, us not to think as climate change, climate crisis as purely environmental or scientific issue. It has effect. What is the role of what they are doing? What is the role of the ICT ministry? What are innovations? What is the role of parliamentarians, Ministry of Agriculture? You saw we are still locked at that, you know, cocoon of environment in such a way that when, you know, our crops, look, right now, you know, the rain came late. Right now, I have gone to some places where you find, of course, it's very erratic. It rains today, it takes around 3 days more. Those are what we call the manifestations of the changing climate. And people, actually, you don't need to be a scientist to notice that that is changing. And so, if that farmer has a small irrigation, because even in terms of, even at global level, the renewables actually are becoming affordable because of the innovations which are coming up. So you don't need now the big dam, you don't need the mega, you know, the Kenya Power to power for you. You can buy a very small, you know, energy system and microgrid for you and irrigation to power your energy. And so this is where we are going. And I think the conversations for me in next year is how I will engage him to come up. How are we going to combine so that we can work together? How do we bring now the Ministry of ICT, the Konza City, what are they going to be doing? You saw a lot of innovation. So these are the things which we are talking. KEFSA, what is the role of KEFSA, for instance, in this, in businesses? You know, we need really to think outside the box. And this is some of the things we are thinking about, the conversations. I think we are laying as a foundation for that. And the good thing is that now we have that political goodwill we were looking at. We have that now we have cultivated the enabling environment. But what we need to see, just to finish, my colleagues talked about the politics and where it finds itself with the economy. You know, you cannot separate. In fact, look at what Kuruma said: seek the political the political kingdom, and then other things will follow. I can assure you everything, and that's why people fight for power. You know, and I don't know what the engineer will say, but I can assure you, it will always be a motive. The election year. Why? Because that is where resources are shared. That is where it is determined.
But I think your proposition can be challenged by this fact. I mean, I have been to countries, and I'm sure, you know, some people here will bear witness. you know, I've been to Switzerland. I've been when you know, they're going through their municipal elections, when they are going through political processes, they do it in a quiet and a peaceful manner. Actually, you wouldn't tell that you know, they're having elections, and even during the election day, I mean, it's a working day. For us here, it's always a holiday. For them, it's a working day. People will just go cast their votes and then wait for their electoral agency, you know, to tell them the winner. So and this is where I want Kirago to come in to say, I mean, we have been brought up to believe that, you know, politics must be confrontational, you know, there must be cutthroat, you know, there must be chaos, you know, in one way or the other. But can we really have elections without all these? Elections that are peaceful, transitions that are peaceful, and administrations, you know, that come and champion the welfare of the nation?
Thank you. My late father once told me when I was a younger person that the country does not go anywhere. The people are the ones who disappear. Because at one time I was acting like the country is going, and you know, we would fight for possessions and like there is no tomorrow. But I am convinced myself that this country is taking the right direction. This whole year demonstrated a lot that hard work pays. And I can say that for His Excellency the President. He went everywhere in this country looking for votes, not waiting for somebody somewhere to help, and explaining himself what is it that is in his manifesto. And I can tell you, because he was in my constituency, in every ward, and he did that to many other places, that as we go forward, Kenyans have come of age, that they want to listen. What is it that you are telling them? Yes, we have exploited our youth, because one, they are not employed. Many other people have no value for their time because they are unemployed, they don't have better things to do, and for that reason, everywhere you go, you can have 1,000 people around you because they have nothing to do. But I believe, as we are now planning ahead, if we created employment in this country, we engaged people, you remove some of these people that are available to be swayed this or the other. You, O'Brien, I'm sure, even during this campaign, maybe you didn't have time to move from one campaign rally to another because you are busy. But there are many people in this country who need a job, who need to be engaged fruitfully. So I believe that if we can sort out the problems we have of unemployment, of the youth, yeah, there will be no people to move around, or goods for that matter. So, as His Excellency has put about this Hustler Fund, which many people are taking lightly, and I can tell you, I have talked to people who need that 300 or 500 to buy milk so that they can make tea and sell it in 3-4 hours and get 700 and get 200 for his profit and borrow again. We need to focus on those people who, for some reason, we have been misusing them. And I believe myself that this country can take right steps. First, as I had mentioned before, we must feed ourselves as a country. We have the land, we have the resources, we have the skills. I know that is possible. We cannot be relying on international conferences or donor conferences for how to feed ourselves. Because we know we have varieties of foods that we can promote even in the changing climate. You do not insist on the same thing that you know it is going to fail because of the climate, whatever. We need to shift to certain other products that actually can withstand even the climate change. Some things we are not in control. But I also know that we, particularly like this panel full of technical people, we can be useful by addressing basic things. Sometimes you go to the moon and we leave the things on the ground. look at our schools. How much of space in terms of roofing do we have? You can harvest the water. If you wanted to use them like solar panels, you could use. But what is it that you are doing? Exactly. We wait till the rain to come, no harvesting, and then the following day, people are asking, can we have some water next door? Mm-hmm. So for me, even as we are discussing about the high ed, there are certain basic things that we as a country
I know Kelvin wants to say something on that, but I want you to hold on to your thought, because I also want you to comment about the Hustlers Fund, and the impact, whether it has any impact, from as a business community. But I want to hear this from the peers. The president has been talking about, deepening ICT and, of course, driving innovation to improve service delivery, to drive economic growth. As a ministry, what are the things that you are planning to do to ensure that this is realized?
First, I want to acknowledge the statement you've made. President has made it very clear the role of ICT, technology and innovation in the future of our country. And I think from the plan and the direction of the priority sectors, from agriculture, cooperative and small and medium enterprises, housing, the role of technology in all this is so critical, even in the health sector. And ICT will be an enabler for all these sectors. And when the president put forward some of the things he wants to do, one comes out the digital superhighway, and this is to ensure that our country is not left out in the fourth industrial revolution. We must connect to the rest of the world. We have connectivity to the global through our submarine cables, which is quite abundant. We have got some cables across the country, but we are yet to reach every part of this country. And that is why we have this drive to have another 100,000 kilometers of fiber connectivity to ensure that we reach every corner of our country. And it will be a good experience, because our mobile network operators will be happy. Where they don't have broadband, they will be able to connect all their stations with the broadband, and we can start experience 4G and so forth. We have power connectivity to many homes where fiber is not there. We can write on this to connect our homes. And the last point is the devices, because we still have a huge gap of the 63 million devices we have in our hands across the country. A majority of them are still 2G and 3G, which is not sufficient enough. So the directive to ensure we have an affordable mobile phone, a smartphone, is quite going to be impactful to our country and enable our people to access the digital platform. We have also the efforts going on to digitize government and ensure government services are put online. And this will create really a new experience for our people to bring efficiency. It will have impact on our GDP. It will lower our cost of operations. And also, it will create new opportunities, because automation, which is going on in government, digitization, will open opportunities for our young people to play a role in that process to ensure we do the digitization. It will also lay a very strong foundation for our country to reap the benefits of e-commerce. We stand a very strong opportunity as a country to open new opportunities and enable our country to be part of global e-commerce by ensuring we have e-government, we have clear identity, and ensuring our people can tap from anywhere in this country. Globally also, the nature of work is changing. One of the things looking forward is talent. How will people work? We've seen during COVID the emergence of remote work, the emergence of various ways of working from the traditional way where we go to office. And so there are new ways of which we can now access global opportunities from where you are in our country. So with the connectivity of fiber across the country, by digitizing government, sorting the issue of identity to ensure that digital space is as safe as possible to ensure that when anyone transacts, you are very sure who is this person. And this is one of the things we are going to work on to improve the work environment in the digital space. We're going to address one of the important issues to build a national government architecture to ensure that all the systems in the government can speak to each other clearly, so that we build really a global platform that will enable our country to be even a model in the region and to really open opportunities for our people. And one of the challenges, and Mheshimiwa has talked, is jobs. That is shortage of jobs. But when we go to other regions, you realize actually it's the opposite. They are looking for talent. So how do we open these opportunities across the world to our people in our country? And one of the things we've discovered is we need to do some digital skill training, and we've initiated this program. A few weeks ago, His Excellency the President launched a program at the Kapete National Polytechnic. This is to enable our young people be part of the global workforce that can support companies across the world from where they are. We are going to run out this program across the country, and we are working with Ministry of Education, TVET, and even Kenya National Innovation Agency to see how we can leverage the infrastructure we have. And we are going to have over 23 devices deployed in our TVETs.
Kevin, I know you wanted to respond to what Mheshimiwa was saying, but I also want you to touch on the issue of Hustlers Fund. Almost now a month and a half in operation. Have you felt the impact of Hustlers Fund as the business community?
Thank you for that question. And before I touch on the Hustlers Fund, maybe I can talk about, I just say something about what I talked earlier about politics. The main concern that, one, we cannot run away from politics, just like the way you cannot separate politics, the church, family, all that, and even the government. Ideally, when you ask who is the government in a democracy is a government of the people and by the people. But the question is, and this is the truth of the matter, when we are in an election period, as much as you want to politically align, what happens to businesses that close down? How do we ensure? We've gone to countries like the US, other countries in the world, where election, the president is being elected. Countries like the US, North American and Southern American, like the Brazil, and other countries, election is done. Life is ongoing, especially the business community.
Actually, the US is not the best example, because we saw what they did when they invaded, Capitol Hill.
We can give another example.
and almost banning the entire building.
Like, I'm saying, maybe we can give an example of, O'Brien, you're well-traveled.
Let me say Canada.
Or say Canada.
Yeah.
Or maybe let me not give a specific country. We can talk of an ideal situation. The business community does not understand the value of public holidays. For example, you see that even when we have a public holiday, that holiday benefits people in the formal employment that have a salary, and also that are in the government. So when there is a prolonged holiday in quotes, what happens to the businesses? The point is, can we create an ideal environment? And this can go to members of parliament, the president. I like what the deputy president said during the inauguration. And I remember we went to State House for the pastors and the clergy meeting when we were praying for State House, the first service, Thanksgiving. And the deputy president said, the way he was brought up, he has been brought up in telling the truth. People thought he said too much, but he defended him, not defending, he said that the problem he has is that he does not know how to lie. There is an old story given of that king who was naked. Everybody praised the king except one boy who told the king, no, you are not well dressed, but you're naked. From the business community, we would like a situation whereby we will go vote in the morning, go back to our lives, regardless of the political party that you support.
We vote and we go back to back.
We go back, we vote. Even government offices can be opened on the day of voting.
As opposed to having a holiday.
As opposed to having a holiday. People go vote in shifts. We have economies, and this is where some countries you find they have a 24-hour economy. Others even work on weekends and Sundays. People just open. That's just, I know it may take time. It's not something that, but it is possible with the political goodwill.
Engineer Mwangi, do you think what, or do you believe what Kelvin Muthuri is talking about is possible? I mean, whereby, you know, we can have, you know, our elections, you know, our politics, and at the end of the day, you know, the business of building our economy, you know, continues uninterrupted.
O'Brien, where we are in our democracy, we recognize that it is growing. It is, the electoral process is very emotive. One of the cardinal things is the importance of making sure that people vote and that they are accorded every opportunity to go and cast their vote and not to be hindered in any way through lack of access or transportation or lack of time, etc. What my colleague is speaking about will come one day because we're on the journey of development and transformation. But for now, I think we need to respect the fact that we are still growing in our democracy. And we want people, even if they join those queues, because you never know at what time you will vote, that they are accorded every opportunity. And then also to go sit home and relax, take that day with their family, take stock of what has happened on that particular day. And as we saw, vent out whatever issues that we may have. And then peacefully wait for the results. So we shall get there one day.
We shall get there one day.
But one thing I could say in the ending is that obviously it doesn't mean that everything stops. There are services that must be there, transport must be there, food must be eaten, and other things. And therefore, those who are able to exercise their democratic vote or right, and then continue doing the business, I mean, they're more than welcome. But for now,
we still have some work to do.
Yes.
Kevin, just a minute, because I want to hear from Dr. Omwansa. You know, as the man in charge of Kenya, which is in charge of deepening and driving innovation in this country, can we get to a point whereby, I mean, I don't really have to walk to the polling center for me to vote. I can vote, you know, at the comfort of my sitting room, in the office, you know, in the kitchen. Is it possible for us to get there?
Thank you, Brian. You know, if we worked last year from our houses and delivered our targets in the office, and we met our performance contracts, and offices, some people have even released their offices and they have transitioned that they don't need offices anymore. If we could believe and do it, it's just that we were pushed a little bit by COVID to make that happen, then it simply confirms that everything and anything is possible. If today I can transact money from Australia and pay my bill for my house in Lavington, and everything is settled, and I never imagined in 10 years ago, it means that technology can enable you to do virtually anything.
How fast then can we get there to that point?
How
fast can we get to that point?
How fast can we get there?
I can see Kelvin is really worried about that.
He's worried about that one. If you could believe that money could be transacted, you're more sensitive about money than we are actually about a vote maybe. It is as soon as now. Connectivity during the election and the polling stations in the last election was as good as almost 100%. That means connectivity is right there. Devices are becoming a lot more affordable right now. So my projection would be in the next election, all we need to do is to set our mind that we're going to do it, and we can do it.
In the next 5 years?
It can take 5 years. It's a question of preparedness. It happens in other places. Sometimes it's people pull back maybe because of doubt. But if you go with an optimistic mind, we have what it takes to make that happen. But O'Brien, I may also want to go back to this point around you know, jobs, and I think it was kind of pinned a little bit as to why we struggle with our electoral processes. You know, youth are about 70% of our population. and we've got close to 17% or so people living below $2 a day. And I spend a little bit of my time in my rural village to talk to youths, and I could tell a little bit of a burden where almost everyone wants to become a politician. Why? Because the role models, the message they have is the only person who's kind of doing very well is this politician. I don't know whether life is very easy for you. It's a tough life. And this is also the role of media, to kind of help demystify the various possibilities and opportunities that the youth have, so that then we don't always have to think that there's only one or two options. I could meet young people out of college who I would ask, okay, so what is your career goal? And I struggle to get an answer. Yeah. And it really surprises me. So there's a huge opportunity to demystify. Then finally, I think I would come to the point of technology and innovation. And I think as the PS has articulated about the possibilities of opportunities that are out there beyond the traditional forms of unemployment going to an office. It's mind-boggling. The question is, are we ready for it? I meet a lot of employers. I mean, I met the head of HR in Safaricom the other day who tells me, you know, I have a lot of jobs, but I can barely get the people to hire. And then on the other side, we are saying, oh, I don't have a job. You know, there's so much unemployment. What is happening is that the characteristic of an employee and the work environment and characteristics are changing. It's just that the people are not necessarily shifting their minds a little faster. If COVID made us all be comfortable with working remotely, something is going to push us, and we will tap into these opportunities even more. And I think as through the technology and innovation mechanisms, we hope we will have an answer over the next couple of years about how many jobs we can create, and people absorb them, and we become a little better, and we become less and less aggressive about these election positions, and so on and so forth.
And you know, talking about jobs, and I remember there was a report that was launched by the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, during the COP meeting, whereby they were saying that the world can be generating about 20 million jobs in nature-based solutions.
It's true.
Mithika, you know, as a person who is deeply engaged in nature and environmental issues, are you convinced that we are tapping nature to, number one, develop jobs, and of course, re-engineer our economy?
Yeah, just before I come to that, the issue of election and technology, I've been watching the latest U.S. election in the state of Georgia. And you see, it's actually will come to that level where you just go and vote, because the people come and vote. You don't need to go. Actually, you post your vote, your ballot, and then it continues. But the problem, the issue is, do we trust that system? And those changes, to me, are incremental. You know, it doesn't just come once. You have to trust the systems. You have to you know, cultivate the people's minds until you reach that level. I think we'll reach that level. And let me just reduce your fear. I think, Doctor, we have as Kenyans, only that we don't want to say that we are ahead, because you know, in Africa, I've traveled to many African countries and I've observed. I can assure you, when it comes to election, it comes to innovation, it comes to everything, I think in sub-Saharan Africa, Kenya is a pioneer in everything. The only thing is that when we put ourselves at global scale, then where you know, you can be a leader from the leaderless. So I think we are doing well, and the good thing, we have the best, for instance, constitution, which has never, in fact, is even the best than even the American Constitution. I can assure you. So if we can just protect the space which we have, and we are making progress, and the people are coming into that, then we are going really to move to reach that ideal level where we are saying this is the system which we want. Coming to that nature-based solutions, and you know, we are actually in an epochal stage. Right now, it is inevitable that the world is transitioning, and we are not noticing that. We are past the era, for instance, of oil, and we don't determine our economies, for instance. In the next 10 or so years, we are not going to be relying on internal combustion engine, the fossil fuels, the oil. It is actually the renewables. Go to the north, the oil rules in Norway right now, 67% of Norwegian roads are driven by its electric cars. And that is the rapidity with which we are moving. And the transition to low carbon, climate resilient, inclusive economic development pathways are actually inevitable, and we are transitioning to that. And those are the things, and we don't determine our economies. Our economies are determined from outside. And if those people who shape the global economy, technology and anything, if they decide, then there is no way. So I'm seeing that. And for us, what we need to do, and actually there are enormous jobs there. And when it's coming to jobs, actually we are churning a lot of, throughout this month, we have been witnessing a lot of young people coming from universities, graduations, all over, all universities, many of them. When in 20 years ago, I finished university, I can assure you in my village, I was only, maybe I could walk 1 kilometer to get another graduate. Right now, every village has got graduates. But you tell me, where do all those people go? I am an employer also. I can assure you I've been unable to get some placements, some jobs, ideal people. Yes, there are so many trained, with even master's degrees and some even PhDs. But when you come, you are shocked that you are not going even to get a person to really who fits into what you want. The skill mismatch. And these are some of the things which we need really to look at. What does Tonui and the Ministry of ICT, the Konza City now, we are now, it is now growing. Are we preparing young people to really fit into those jobs? So those are some of the things. So now, just in a nutshell, I think we really need to look into that. There is a lot of jobs. The other day, I saw Canada requires thousands of jobs. But it is not about anyone trained, but it is, does that person fit into that jobs? So those are the challenges which we have, and that is where we need to really fit our training as we speak now, but really we need to fit ourselves in the rapidly changing environment.
Engineer Mwangi, I know you are part of a team that was formed by the government to relook into the issue of energy, number one, the quality of our energy and the cost of our energy. And you made a report. And Mithika here is talking about the energy of the future. I mean, as a private sector, and of course, basing your argument on the report that you made, do you feel that as a country we are making that transition at the desired rate?
Thank you.
Yeah, keep going.
One of the most important things that we must recognize is that our country has progressed tremendously in the power generation sector. Our country has a generation capacity of about 3,000 megawatts, a peak consumption of slightly over 2,000 megawatts. In that 3,000 megawatt generation capacity, about 75% of it is renewable energy. But I think the important statistic is that the actual energy that is produced or generated that ends up in the grid, over 90% is renewable. So in the power generation front, we are making tremendous progress compared to other countries. That in essence means that the energy that is consumed, only about 10% is from thermal sources, which is fossil fuels. If you look at the entire energy consumed in this country, whether cooking, transport, power generation, etc., there is a statistic based on a study done many years ago, and I think it has been revalidated after that, that 60 to 70% of the energy consumed is bioenergy, meaning wood fuel, charcoal, etc. And therefore it lends to the need of us growing trees and, more importantly, converting to other forms of energy. 20% of the total energy is from petroleum, oil and gas, or fossil fuels. And then we have 10% electrical power. Now, the report identified, amongst other things, the need to reduce the cost of power, which is obviously a key enabler, But not just that. The argument can be extended to actually petroleum as a source of energy. What our colleague Dr. Mithika has said is that whether we like it or not, the transport sector is facing disruption in that there is legislation, especially from the developing world, that is now targeting the year, some of them 2030, some of them 2035 or thereabouts, after which the internal combustion engine will be outlawed. That means that the legislation is going to push the change in technology in the modes of transportation in as far as energy sources is concerned. Which will then mean that we are likely to see a higher consumption of electrical power in electric mobility. And I think that is important because one of the things that the report identified is the need for us to plan our power demand, the way we project it, and the way we onboard power generation plants to meet this demand. And therefore, since the legislation is coming, it's only a matter of time before it gets here. And once legislation comes in, it pushes business to respond to those policies. And I'm confident that once the electric vehicles, starting with the smaller vehicles, passenger vehicles, etc., once the prices are right, the availability is there, the charging stations are there, and I've seen some of the government bodies, KPLC, Kengen, looking at it, then it is a matter of time that we'll find it very fashionable to own an electric car. And once we cross that bridge, the dynamics will certainly change. So Kenya is progressing our active participation in the Conference of Party conferences, as we saw with our president and his pronouncement during that particular very important conference. Means that we are well on our way towards achieving climate change requirements for this country.
Thank you very much. I mean, gentlemen, you know, when I look at the time, I can see it's coming to 12:48, and we really have to wrap up this program because our news is coming up at 1 o'clock. But not before I give each and every one of you 1 minute each, actually 45 seconds, to make their projections for 2023. What will define the year and what we need to do? You have 45 seconds, and I'm starting with Member of Parliament for Limuru, Engineer Kirabu.
First of all, maybe you had me 30 seconds to comment on the issue of elections. I think it's up to Kenyan people to determine when they will trust our ICT, to allow it to be used properly in terms of voting, like we are saying, online, because it is possible. Technology has shown elsewhere it is possible. But you know the arguments about elections in America, in even now Brazil, and even ourselves, that there are people somewhere who do not trust these things. So it's an issue of trust. I think from a technological point of view, it is okay. To Kevin, my friend, please, people like you should get also into politics. We talk about politicians and sometimes how dirty politics is, but we ourselves, we want the politics to be clean, we stay out. It is very important for people who are clean, people who believe in certain policies to come into politics. I can assure you, in Limuru, during the election, there was nowhere that was closed. People are doing their business, and you know, you vote, you go to where you take tea, and you take your tea. So, and also during election, there are many people who actually do business. So it's a matter of shifting business. So there's a lot of business that is done. But I want to focus on the coming year. And as an engineer myself, and having heard the president talk about the need for the country to start getting into a saving mode, where each one of us can be saving. It may be financial, but I also want to call upon us, particularly the technical people, to engage ourselves in this country saving on energy, on costs, because one of our biggest challenges in this country is the cost of maintaining our infrastructure, for example.
Very well.
You find a pothole that gets into, a crack gets into a pothole, then into a crater when you're watching.
Very well.
So You find X-ray equipment lying in hospitals that were new, but now they're not working. If only we can start saving, including saving on arguments which have no meaning in the media, which do not help this country. We can save all of us.
So your message is save
on whatever it is that you're doing. Let's save for this nation, so that the resources that are available to all of us, we can use it for productivity.
I want to hear from Dr. Tony Omwansa.
Thanks very much, O'Brien. You've given me less than a minute. I think based on the tenacity and enthusiasm and the optimism that we've seen in Kenyan people, and more so the younger generation, which is over 70%, I have the following that I can project for the next 1 year. One is that technology is going to penetrate more and more, and it is only going to, and it is evolving significantly, and therefore we all have a duty to embrace and adapt into the technological way of life. Second, innovation is going to shape our future. We like it or we don't, whether it is from agriculture, education, healthcare, food security, name it. And innovation is going to shape the future. And therefore embrace. Finally, I think jobs are going to scale, because now digital economy is enabling this. There's going to be significant opportunities, and the more we embrace, the better for all of us.
Buona P.S.
One of the things we'll see, not only in Kenya but globally, is an accelerated acceleration of digital transformation. And this will see automation in both public and private sector, and even new technologies being applied. Even some of the issues they've talked about in elections, I believe there'll be new technologies that can bring more trust. And trust is building. We can see even elections in professional institutions is already happening. Secondly, there will be new way of work. Remote work would come, and there will be also new kind of jobs that we might not be able to describe, but within the digital space. And it's important now we bridge the skill gap that is there. And during Jamhuri Day, the president announced some of the trainings available for our young people. And this is what I would encourage our young people. Take this digital skills training that's available. You can log online and do those skills and link yourself with opportunities that are there online. The last one, of course, is sustainability. Environment will be a big thing, and technology will still play a big role. Data analysis, huge data that needs to be made sense, and so technology will still play a big role also on sustainability.
Thank you very much. Kelvin, 30 seconds so that we wrap up.
2023, we are holding the government to account. The Hustler Manifesto should be fully implemented. My friend tells me to join politics. I will only join if I will work for free. Many fights and battles that are happening, even overthrowing the governors, is as a result of money.
Very well.
The politics must be less lucrative, that even the president can work for free.
Asante.
Because you are serving the nation.
Mwenda Mithika.
Yeah, so mine is to looking into 2023 as a year of partnerships, collaborations to address the challenges which are like the climate crisis. The partnerships to ensure that we accelerate climate action, partnerships beyond environment, and that is what we are looking into and working together with others.
Very well. Thank you very much. Engineer Mwangi.
Thank you very much, O'Brien. I think 2023 is a year that we're looking forward to an even better business environment. We're looking at the private sector continuing to engage government in alignment with their manifesto to enhance the ease of doing business, to enhance our global competitiveness as a country. And therefore, we are looking forward to also seeing technology provide solutions for better business. And I think I would like to also say that the creation of better market linkages, access to credit, and bringing on board SMEs who play a very important role in our country, both in creating jobs and creating wealth. So I'm looking forward to a better year. Thank you.
Very well.
My message to the PS and the Director for Innovation: please protect us from cyber bullies and introduce a wall of fame where you reward the socialites and people in social media that bullies the most the businesses, to stop them from bullying them.
Well, they have heard from you. Let's hope that, well, this is something maybe they can implement. Otherwise, gentlemen, thank you so very much indeed. You've been with us here since 10:30, and now we have to wrap it up because the 1 o'clock bulletin is coming up at exactly 1 p.m. Otherwise, thank you so very much indeed.
We wish people Happy New Year.
To wish people Happy New Year?
Yes.
You want to sing a chorus? Happy New Year?
Happy New Year, yes.
Very well. Thank you so very much indeed. Have yourself an absolutely Happy New Year and a prosperous time ahead of you. Remember, this is Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We are live. The lunchtime bulletin is coming up next. Otherwise, from me and the rest of the team, thank you so very much indeed. We look forward to have you again next year, God willing. All the best. Bye for now.